everyone. The movie of the year is here, at least if you are a hardcore movie nerd. And if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably at least close to one. Paul Thomas Anderson's One Battle After Another is in theaters. It's getting enormous critical raves and Oscar buzz that is so loud that it's kind of overwhelming all the movies we saw at the fall festivals just a few weeks ago. We're recording this podcast before opening weekend, so we don't know how much money this very expensive movie had made, but it does kind of feel like no matter what, it will be a feather in the cap of what's been a truly wild year for Warner Brothers and the people who run it, Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdi. So joining me to talk about both One Battle After Another and the studio that made it is the Ankler himself, Richard Rushfield. We will talk about the movie, the business that went into it, and whether it even matters if One Battle After Another makes any money or turns a profit. I am Katey Rich, and this is the Prestige Junkie Podcast. Richard, last I saw you, we were in Toronto. We were seeing so many movies, so many big movies that everyone was getting very excited about. And then it kind of felt like the minute we all landed home from Toronto, it was saying, oh, yeah, but there's a new PTA movie coming out. And now all anyone wants to talk about is One Battle After Another. Is that the impression you've been getting these last few weeks?
Yeah, I mean, and I think it was helped by that it sort of came out of this negative narrative that had developed about it was too expensive, and people were just up in arms about how expensive it was for a year, and then it comes out and people say, oh yeah, well that's why it costs money. Okay.
You really do see a lot of it. You know, I don't know what $175 million looks like, or even if that's what the movie actually cost, but I would imagine this looks close to what that is.
I mean, it's an action film. The shooting starts within the first minute, and between shooting and car chases, it doesn't stop for 2 hours and 40 minutes. So, I mean, maybe you can do that cheaper. I'm sure it's been done cheaper, but it's not like it's as like a Samuel Beckett play being adapted.
And thank God for that. I mean, after all this talk, after, saying it was too expensive, and, we'll get into the Warner Brothers of it all, how did it lead up to your expectations?
I thought it was great. It was, it was amazing. It propelled you through it. It was led by some real stars there, old timers and new timers, and I wasn't bored for a second. The what's the total running time? 240?
240, something like that.
I mean, that just flew right by.
Yeah.
And I have some minor quibbles, but
okay.
but still a 9 or a 10 for me.
Yeah. I mean, I think that Paul Thomas Anderson, for a lot of people, has really never made anything but 9s or 10s. And, I think of you as a Gen X icon alongside Paul Thomas Anderson and Leo DiCaprio. The three of you are on the Mount Rushmore.
I would say so, although Leo might be a couple years younger than us. So
in the movie, he claims to be born in the 80s, which I know is not true.
So do I.
So, how important was this movie to you? How important is Paul Thomas Anderson just in your, filmmaker pantheon?
I mean, I would say Paul Thomas Anderson is probably the greatest filmmaker of my generation. And of that 90s crew, he is the one who has come out and really never had a slump. I mean, I like some of his films more than I like others. Sure. I will say that. But every scene of his is completely unique and completely original, and he's been making these great, totally original films for all these years. And I think you just have to, if you look at the 90s class of filmmakers and what they've done, which are a lot of great people. I mean, I think if Paul Thomas isn't number one, he's in the top tier.
Yeah. I mean, this is something that Chris Rosen and I talked about when we did a Substack Live about the movie on Friday. But the way that he's grown is so interesting to me. I think a lot of times you see people kind of break out in a certain mode and have trouble breaking out of it. And directors who have long careers tend to grow up in some ways. But the way that this movie feels like it's made from a completely different person who made Boogie Nights, but with the same amount of skill, I think is really impressive and shows like emotional growth there.
Yeah. And he's dealing with kind of bigger topics. And I mean, this is a much more kind of straightforward narrative than he's dealt with before. And if you look at films like The Master, where I still don't know what's going on.
Love The Master. I'll explain it to you.
I appreciate The Master. that'd be one of the ones that I'm not dying to see again anytime soon. But I respect it even if I don't love it.
Yeah.
But I put him with others of the generation like Richard Linklater or Steven Soderbergh, who are just like always trying new things, always pressing forward, like never satisfied with what they've done. Like their next film never looks like their last film, and are just restless intellects, and their command of the medium grows and grows with time.
I mean, Linklater's got 2 movies out this year that, presumably took a couple weeks to make. It feels like Anderson just like operates on like if he steps out of his house to make a movie, it is a military level operation.
Yeah,
unlike those other guys.
They're kind of opposite approaches like that, but the same sort of restless temperament.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're recording this a few days before this comes out, so who knows what's going to happen in between. But, the culture war potential for this movie feels massive. Like, as I was seeing it in a theater, with the public, I was thinking about, Apple pulling the Jessica Chastain show that's apparently about like online political violence. I haven't seen it. And I was kind of amazed that like at no point were there rumors that Warner Brothers had considered the same thing. Having been, enmeshed and covering the Kimmel stuff over the past couple of weeks, do you feel like this movie is going to walk into some culture wars and are we ready for that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it speaks to the mood of the moment. Of course, the script was written in the middle of the Biden administration. So,
yeah, when it's based on Vineland by Thomas Pynchon, which came out in 1990, based very loosely.
We tend to, when we talk about it, think that the film was like created yesterday.
It kind of feels like it sometimes.
But it does feel like, but I think it also, there's almost no speeches in it. There's no moment where someone gets up and says, freedom is something worth fighting for, and we need to remember who we are. And there's none of that. So it's all just told through the story and the action of it and sort of the pathos of the characters. A speech like that would really be the thing that people would latch on to. But it's much more of a kind of blank template for people to, which will not stop people from injecting their feeling. I think it does have a real perspective on all this, and clearly of the 2 protagonists, Leo DiCaprio and Sean Penn, it's much more sympathetic to one than the other.
More sympathetic to the former revolutionary fighter than the military man who seems to have a vengeance on his mind. I
mean, naming your character Colonel Lockjaw might be a little bit of a tell of how you feel about him there. So
it's a little Dr. Strangelove, right? You just you put the whole thing right there in the character name.
That's kind of my one reservation about the film. It's this kind of zany humor that comes from the Thomas Pynchon books, which Paul Thomas Anderson, having now filmed 2 Thomas Pynchon books, is partial to, is kind of my least favorite humor. Pynchon is such like Paul Thomas Anderson, such a broad and ranging intellect, but when he tries to be funny, it just.
There's a lot of humor in Vineland too. I read it this summer ahead of seeing this movie, and a lot of stuff that's not in the movie at all, but kind of maybe a similar sensibility.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that humor kind of ruins all of Pynchon.
Ruins, wow.
Pretty much, yeah. I just don't find it funny. I find it like kind of 60s stoner zaniness, and there are traces of that come in here into this movie, are the part I could do without.
Yeah. Although I feel like the Christmas Adventurers Club, which is the white supremacist organization that Tony Goldwyn leads, that Sean Penn's character is trying to get into, feels the most like it would be from that, but it's not in Vineland at all. Maybe it's a different Pynchon novel that comes from. I know, right? It feels like it should be.
Well, that name is such a Pynchon kind of name.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wish they had named it something else, because it kind of puts them in kind of another realm of kind of zany. That
you don't like it when they say "Hail Saint Nick" as their group slogan.
It is such realistic. It is such sort of hyper realistic action, and then that's just like broad, goofy comedy. Yeah, and I could do without that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you're someone who will often talk about like the way that movies have been made for a long time, there are simple things that, we know that work, and car chases have always been one of them. They've been part of cinema forever. And I felt such a breath of relief watching the car chases in this movie specifically. Like, having watched so much CGI slop nonsense over the past couple of years, like, I imagine it felt like a breath of fresh air for you too.
Yeah, I mean, that car chase sequence will go down with what's his name, Bullet, and The French Connection as among the great car chases.
The one you're talking about, there's a couple of good ones, but the one at the end, I think, is the
one with the hills. Yeah,
yeah, the one with the hills. That's how we're going to be talking about it for that much time. I mean, so you have been writing not just about the Kimmel stuff, but about cowardice in Hollywood. I think is that fair to say? Is kind of one of your.
That's a term I would use and have used. So,
and like Warner Brothers thus far, I mean, there's obviously the studio is at threat of being purchased by Paramount and Skydance, which is another thing to talk about. But do we give them any credit for making this movie, for, standing up in some way, backing a filmmaker, taking a gamble on the cost, obviously, but like also on the subject matter? Does David Zaslav get a win in this column for this movie?
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing that. So for the viewers that haven't, or lucky enough not to have been following all this, way back in February, there was this kind of moral panic in Hollywood about Mike and Pam, the heads of Warner Brothers Film Division, were spending too much money, and the journalists were very outraged about how much money they were spending. Why it's journalists' job to be outraged that someone is spending too much money on a movie is I don't know. And the biggest item in that was that they had given $170 million to make this Leo DiCaprio, Paul Thomas Anderson movie. And the comparison was, but look, Licorice Pizza only made $30 million.
It opened in 2021, which we should note is not a great time for moviegoing.
Not a great time for moviegoing, and an enormously different movie, featuring a brief cameo by Bradley Cooper.
And Sean Penn.
But not, not starring either of them, and not starring any, and being a series of vignettes of Hollywood in another era instead of a action film starring Leo DiCaprio. Mm-hmm. But when this was announced, I thought, what an amazing thing that they are giving this money to Paul Thomas Anderson. Mm-hmm. There are filmmakers I could name who take their big budgets and run them up on catering and long trips for location scouting. I would
love name names after we finish recording. I would love to know these identities.
Well, look at some of those Netflix directors who have taken these enormous paychecks to do it, and then shot a movie that looks like they're filming a community theater project or something. Paul Thomas Anderson, whatever they gave him, he was going to use. He's also never done a movie that was just like, oh, that was his paycheck movie, but it didn't turn out well. He just phoned that one in. Yep. So my outrage at these people's outrage about, oh, can you believe they're giving that much money to Paul Thomas Anderson, it was just a feeling like, you people hate movies. Mm-hmm. Like if you're saying that you hate movies, for you, movies are a line on a accountant's Excel sheet. And
an accountant for a company you don't work for. Like, why would you, as the trade press, care about the balance sheet at Warner Brothers?
Yeah. So, I mean, it was in this age, a heroic thing to take a chance on a movie like this. I think it was less of a chance than less of a wild bark. I mean, they had read the script. They knew what it would be. They weren't just saying like, oh, Paul, just bring us a movie.
They weren't spending $175 million on like Phantom Thread, which is a very good movie, but not entertaining in any of the same ways as this one.
They knew this was an action movie. They knew, and they knew that Leo DiCaprio was going to star. So it's an action movie starring Leo DiCaprio. Already puts it into two very different categories than you're talking about for Licorice Pizza. Yep. And also not coming out in the middle of a pandemic. And also, from that description, being a likely awards contender, which has a financial impact as well. So, so all of those things, like they weren't going to lose all 170 million of those dollars or however much it was.
Sure.
If you have a movie starring Leo DiCaprio, you can, and that's all you have, all there is to it. you can negotiate foreign rights, you can negotiate all these other things.
This is something people don't realize, like even just in terms of sheer box office, like his movies make so much money, even when they're Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yeah, and they just have long lives, and they continue to generate things. And people like look at it as the opening weekend box office is the entire story of of a film's success. And it's like the first chapter of the story, which if you hate the first chapter of a book, you might put it down then, but you can't say, I read the first chapter, I know what this book is.
Well, and that hand-wringing had a much quicker turnaround answer to it with Sinners, because it was happening kind of right before that happened. I think Sinners was $90 million, significantly less than One Battle After Another, but still, a gamble for a period vampire movie. And it became a huge phenomenon. Like at this point, I would say it probably will wind up making much more money than One Battle After Another. But it felt like that should have shut everybody up, but it didn't.
Once they had started on this, they kept going on. And that one was even frankly more insane because with less money. And Ryan Coogler was a director who's like had nothing but smash hits. Yeah. So like, what the hell are you talking about? Like just because you don't understand what what it is from the 30-second glimpse at CinemaCon, you think it was a waste of money?
Did they show One Battle After Another at CinemaCon? Did you see parts of it? Interesting.
We got it. Yes, you know what? We got the telephone scene.
Oh, okay.
They showed that at CinemaCon.
I would argue that's part of the best part of the movie, that middle escape sequence with Leo.
That's the funniest part of the movie. So it was a good thing to show. But it doesn't, that was just Leo talking on a phone. So it doesn't give you a sense of the action of it from that. So people were still... That was back in March, so I'm sure they were still working on all those sequences and everything.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, not knowing that car chase scene was coming at the end of the movie and being surprised by it was pretty fantastic. So good on them for keeping that to themselves.
And the whole riot, and we haven't even talked about Benicio, who was fantastic.
He's so funny. And such
totally understated performance.
Really warm and funny. And like, he's always there, like, in the car waiting to pick up Leo. He's got a beer waiting for him. Like there's a lot of that humanity that's all over this movie that, again, like I think should draw people in. Like I think people would be able to go see this movie, and maybe it's not the straightforward Leo action movie you think it's going to be, but I feel like audiences will like what they get.
I can understand if you just came out of Jurassic Park and you were looking for something to decide that the Phantom Thread wouldn't be your thing or all that. I think you'd still be pretty happy in One Battle After Another. Yeah, I agree. If that's who you were.
Yeah, I mean, you'll be doing Monday Morning Quarterbacks with Sean McNulty on Monday, and people will have seen this already by the time they hear this. But what do you think you'll be saying about One Battle After Another, and whether or not any of it matters? Like, not knowing that we love talking about opening weekend, but it's not the be all end all. Like, what do you think your take's going to be?
I mean, I think a lot of the naysayers are going to try to say, you see, it only made, the upside predictions are like 30 million for the opening weekend. They say, see, it's never going to be profitable because how do you make your way to 400 million from 30 million? And we don't know if this could have a very long life out there, including, if it keeps playing all the way through the Oscar race, that's how long from now? 9 months?
6 months about?
A year away?
It's a year-round event, Richard. It's never not Oscar season.
I just wrote to, I referred to something that the cultural critic Ted Gioia put in his column. He wrote about Walt Disney's original strategy.
Okay.
And how Disney, so when he put out Snow White was a big hit, and they had sequels and spinoffs back in Hollywood in the 30s, so he didn't just invent that. So Snow White, when it came out, was one of the biggest hits in film history. And he said, we're going to take, instead of doing a sequel, instead of doing another one, what we're going to do is we're going to take it out of circulation, and I'm going to reshow. Yeah, I'm going to reshow it in 10 years, and it'll come back in 10 years, and there'll be a new. And the people who love it now, some will have kids that they can take, and they'll take it, and then I'm going to move on to work on another thing. And he did Pinocchio, which was considered a flop at the time. And he said, "Don't worry, this will make its money back in time." And he took it out of circulation also, and it was re-released subsequently, I think 7 or 8 times, and has now become an enormously profitable bottom line. And then he did Fantasia, which was enormous flop, one of the most expensive flops in Hollywood history at the time, and has gone on through that same strategy. I think adjusted with inflation, I think it's in the top 20 all time at this point.
Oh, wow.
So it's hugely successful, even though it was a massive flop at the time. When you have a studio, what you are doing is building up your vault. You're building up your files, your record. That is the real value. And what we've been doing lately is strip mining the vaults and just like taking everything and just exploiting them, doing unimaginative, uncreative renditions of the same old material. And, if you just look at like, do you leave this campsite in better or worse shape than you found it? Like having one battle after another as part of your collection, that makes your net value 10 years from now that much more, that you have that you have that film into it. Doing the eighth installment of whatever, in most cases, decreases the value.
Well, I'm guessing that like if you make a movie that you get a theme park ride out of, like How to Train Your Dragon is going to have like more ancillary income than One Battle After Another having endless repertory screenings in LA. But also it's going to have endless repertory screenings in LA. Like I think all Paul Thomas Anderson movies are going to live forever in that way that so many of these franchise installments never will. And, I don't think the money adds up quite in the same way. But it's like you're saying, like if you want to talk about a long-term investment, why wouldn't you bank on these brand name filmmakers?
The same world that One Battle After Another lived in is a world that creates things like How to Train Your Dragon, which that franchise now, because it's revitalized, that'll be worth billions to Universal over the years. Like incalculable amounts of money that will come in from all the streams from that. But you can't just do that. Hollywood always wants to decide, okay, that's the thing. That's what people want. What people want is a different thing every day of the week. Sometimes they want to cry, sometimes they want to laugh, sometimes they want something small and quiet. They want a mix of experiences and choices, and if you give them the same thing over and over, they get bored. They will get bored very quickly, and they run away. So having a one battles after another in the system is what keeps the whole system interesting. And even if it doesn't lead to toys and rides, it's what people...
I would take I bet you could make a good ride out of One Battle After Another.
Well,
if
you could.
if you really wanted to. I mean, okay, so to bring it back to Warner Brothers and Mike and Pam and everything else, and exactly what you were saying about, everyone wants something different. I just want to like run through like the Warner Brothers hits of this year. I won't hold the Alto Nights against them, but just in terms of what's really worked, a Minecraft movie comes out 2 weeks before Sinners. Those two both massive. Final Destination Bloodlines, massive. F1, pretty solid hit, I think. Superman, another solid hit. Weapons, phenomenon, and definitely made its money back. Conjuring Last Rites was massive. That came out during Toronto, so I like lost track of that a little bit, but I think that was pretty huge. And now One Battle After Another is their last film of the year. I mean, when we're telling the story of Warner Brothers into 2025, the studio that we seemingly just can't stop talking about, like, what do you think the top line of that story is going to be?
Yeah, I mean, that's you look back at studios that have these winning streaks, and no one's winning streak lasts forever, but this is a pretty solid one, and most impressive because of how many of those things are not just franchise IP. Like Minecraft probably will go on to become that, but for the moment, it's an original.
Well, based on a massive pre-existing franchise, but I guess we're not counting it as
Jack Black's character isn't part of that franchise.
Sure.
Isn't part of that video game or anything. I mean, 10 years from now when we're watching Minecraft 14, that template will have been set by what was here. People talk about IP. Everything comes from something.
Sure.
There's few things that are just total. I mean, the One Battle After Another comes from a novel that's been around for a while.
I mean, you could say Sinners is taking blues music, which is not IP, but it's like strong existing artistic inspiration.
It's just. I mean, I just look for. Is it just another installment doing more or less the same thing of a previously established one? So.
Yeah. I mean, Weapons. It was really pretty much brand new. Like, I guess horror is a pretty established thing, but that movie becomes a phenomenon. I think because you go into it and you don't really know what's going to happen next, which I think is also true of Sinners and of One Battle After Another. But so, I mean, with all the Mike and Pam freak out that we've been talking about, they're clearly keeping their jobs. They've had kind of an amazing run. Like, I would not blame them if they went on kind of an I told you so run after this. Like, are other studio heads going to follow in their lead? Is anyone going to learn anything from this? Or do we just get a bunch of great movies and consider ourselves lucky?
Hollywood does what Hollywood wants to do, which is generally the safest path of the least resistance at any point. Now and then you have people who have circumstances, and usually it comes out of a studio being kind of desperate, that they're willing to take chances. But the big problem with movies since the beginning of time is when you make an original movie, you've got to tell people, okay, here's this thing you've never heard of, based on, either something you might have heard of but from another medium. And there's a story about it, and we need you in this 2-day window to get a babysitter, leave your house, come probably pay $100 before you're done, and come see that at this time when there's all the other things you can do and choices for your dollar and time and everything else. And that it's a lot easier to say, you love Jurassic Park, here's dinosaurs are out again.
We had another one of those this year. It was a hit. People
and Chris Pratt's back or whatever, or whoever's back.
Some dinosaurs back.
And that's a much easier case to make than Leo DiCaprio. So he's sort of a revolutionary, but kind of not. It's hard to sell that, and that's always a problem. So when people can do what do you call the pre-aware title, where people know what it is, and you don't have to explain to the world, you don't have to explain to people what this is and why you like it.
Yep.
I think they will always say the good news is they're running out of those. That and they're working less well than they did. So
yeah,
taking chances starts to look like a smarter choice.
Oh, what a great thought that would be. That like we're in a. I mean, because I feel like we're always in this period of being like, well, the 70s Hollywood happened once before, it could happen again, and it always feels like it's in vain. But that just the hope stays alive with things like with the year that Warner Brothers has had.
Yeah, I mean, I think. In my belief is that entertainment persists and that people always want something new. So if every studio were to make nothing but the most soulless franchise, like just take the script of the last one and just change the names of the characters and make it again, then a new studio would pop up and be making original things, and they would have an incredible year.
Yeah.
Based on that. And that's kind of what happened with Warner's. Entertainment will find a way, and the existing studios can serve that, or something else will come along.
Well, an AI cannot make Sinners or One Battle After Another or Weapons or even a Superman as good as the Superman that we got. So I take some faith in that too.
Because it's always like the quirky little moments that surprise you that end up being the thing that everybody connects to and the thing that makes the movie work. So yeah. That's the thing that's going to take AI a while to figure out. Like, how do you give that weird, in Jaws, they always talk about them sitting on the boat and
comparing scars,
the USS Missouri speech and all that. That, without that, the movie doesn't have its emotional resonance that got people to come see it 40 times.
Yeah.
But how does AI know how to put that moment in?
Yeah, for me, it's in One Battle After Another when her friends come to pick her up from the school dance, and he kind of interrogates these hapless teenagers and calls them homie. Like that scene is so funny, and it sells you on him and her and the friends who kind of come back into the story. It's the movie is just crammed full of great moments like that for the lead actors and just incredible supporting characters, top to bottom.
I'm jealous it's still fresh in your mind. Like there's so. I mean, there's so many of those that I can't even remember half of them.
Yeah.
I need to see it again.
Time to see it again. Well, maybe as we wrap this up, we were just talking about our Prestige Junkie pundits, anklerpundits.com. We can see our various predictions. Where are you on One Battle After Another and its awards chances?
So pretty high. I think I put it at number one.
You have it at number one. I'm pulling up your page.
If I'm looking at what stocks are overvalued and undervalued, I think Hamnet is overvalued
Oh yeah, do you want to repeat what you said to me on Slack about about what the people want these days?
I mean, I just think these are really tough times and dark days, and everything you put on the news or on your social media or anything is pretty rough. And 6 months of like Shakespeare mourning his dead baby. Like
he's 11, not a baby, but sure.
Okay, I didn't actually see it.
But, you gotta see Hamnet.
So I'm sure it's great. I have a hard time with dead children movies right now. Having children of my own,
can't imagine why.
That's not I shy away from seeing those movies, and I just don't think like sitting with that for 6 months is where the world will want to be.
Sure.
When I look at undervalued stocks, though, I don't think we're giving enough to credit to Wicked and what Wicked. The sequel, not the sequel, the part 2 of it is much darker.
We can't call it a sequel. Like come on.
Well,
they were made at the same time.
Yeah, it's the original.
Okay, all right.
Story there, and the
sure.
It's a connect or whatever, but
sure.
It is much darker, and it's about fighting a despot, which is which it may be technically a children's movie, but it is a very resonant message. I went to an event for Wicked that I can't talk about, but it has this core message of accepting your differences and celebrating your differences and not letting anyone put you down because of your differences that I think is extremely relevant to this moment here.
You know what else has that message? Is K-pop Demon Hunters. Just putting that out there, which is the other beloved of fifth grade girls around the world franchise we're dealing with this Oscar season.
Also, when we talk about studios taking chances, I mean, musicals haven't had a terrific track record lately. And for Universal, they greenlit this just coming out of in the wake of Cats and their experience there. So they had every reason to think that this could be a disaster or something. It was a stage show from 25 years ago. It was
still playing.
Yeah, it was you had Ariana Grande, who was not a proven box office draw, Cynthia Erivo, who was not a box office anything, and committing I can't imagine what the combined budget is, $1 trillion doing to this could very easily have gone wrong. And it is original filmmaking on a grand Hollywood scale. I don't know. The Academy I should have learned by now that the Academy has changed, and that's not where the Academy is anymore. But
it's a big question for this year, I think.
I think that has a real constituency.
Yeah. I think that's a good bet, because I do think we are like almost forgetting how big Wicked was a year ago and how much it kind of felt like we were waiting for their turn. I mean, my eternal answer for that is always Avatar. Like, those movies are always enormous when they open, and then everyone forgets about it, and then another one comes, and it hasn't been as long a wait this time, so we'll see if it has that power. But I think there's also a question of like, how many giant movies can one Oscar race sustain? And if you've already got Sinners in there in the mix, and assume that there's a spot for Wicked, like what else are we going to make space for?
I don't know. How many depressing, small little films can we sustain? I mean,
I think Sentimental Value is life affirming in the end.
Yeah, I don't know. There are other movies that I still think are. I think I said Roof Man will get in there.
I can't wait to see Roof Man.
Yeah, I feel like the Springsteen movie has a shot at it, but. I haven't seen the Springsteen movie yet. But,
I'm seeing it soon. Once this episode comes out, I'll have seen it, so I'll be able to weigh in. But you got to get your picks all up to date so we can know all of your deep bench thoughts on all these categories.
Yeah. No, I will. This weekend, I'll give it a run.
I'm putting one battle after another in a whole lot of them, including, I think, the first ever casting Oscar. I think if that movie does not win the casting Oscar, because that is a deep bench of well-cast roles in that movie.
Yeah. Like it, the old-timers and the newcomers both are.
Absolutely.
Are fantastic.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Richard, thank you for running all this down with me. It's very exciting to have a big, meaty, fun movie to talk about and to tell Hollywood how to make more of them. We'll have you back on once you've got more of your Oscar hot takes in place. And once Roof Man is running through Oscar season, we'll be ready to have you back on.
Go, Kirsten. This is Kiki's year. You heard it here first.
That does it for today's episode. This podcast is edited by Brett Fuchs and produced by Brett Fuchs and me. Our theme music is by Dave Gonzalez. And thanks again to my co-host, Richard Rushfield. You can subscribe to the Prestige Junkie newsletter at theanchor.com and to this podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you subscribe to prestigejunkie.afterparty.substack.com, you get bonus podcasts every Friday. This week, Chris Rosen and I are going deep on the career of Daniel Day-Lewis in honor of his new movie, Anemone. We also have a longer conversation about One Battle After Another from last week. You can catch up there as well. In the meantime, we'll see you next week.